It was a quiet evening on the ranch, the kind of silence that made even the crickets stop to listen when the wind carried something heavy. The sun was just dipping behind the hills, painting the horizon in deep shades of orange and crimson, and John Marshall, the rancher who lived miles away from town, was just finishing his supper when he heard a faint knock on the door. It was soft at first, hesitant, like the wind brushing against wood, but then came again, harder, faster, desperate. He frowned, wiped his hands on his worn-out flannel shirt, and opened the door. There stood a little girl, no more than 7, barefoot, trembling, her dress torn and face smeared with dirt and tears. Her eyes were wide with terror, and she clutched a small rag doll to her chest as if it were her only protection in the world. "Mister," she whispered, her voice breaking, "they beat my mama, she's dying." For a moment, John just stood there, stunned by the words, by the fear in her voice. He knelt down and asked, "Who beat your mama, sweetheart?" But she only shook her head, trembling, and pointed toward the dark woods beyond the fields. Without a second thought, John grabbed his coat, his flashlight, and an old revolver that hung by the doorway. "Show me," he said firmly. The girl nodded and started running, barefoot over the cold earth, her small feet slapping against the ground as she led him through the tall grass and into the night. The deeper they went, the colder it grew, the moonlight barely piercing through the thick branches overhead. John's boots crunched against dry leaves, and the girl's sobs echoed softly in the dark. Finally, they reached a small clearing, and there, by a crumbled wooden shack, lay a woman, bloodied, barely breathing. Her hair was tangled, her face bruised, her hands limp beside her. John rushed to her, kneeling beside the woman. "Ma'am. Can you hear me?" he said, pressing 2 fingers to her neck. There was a pulse, faint but there. The girl fell beside her mother, crying. They hurt her bad," she sobbed. John lifted the woman gently and carried her back toward his truck. Every step felt like a promise, a vow that whoever did this would pay. When they reached the ranch, he laid the woman on the couch, cleaned her wounds, and called the local doctor. "She's going to make it," the doctor said an hour later, "but she's been through hell." When the doctor left, the girl sat by her mother's side, her eyes red and tired. John knelt beside her. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked. "Lily," she said softly. "And your mama's name?" "Mary." "Who did this to her, Lily?" The girl hesitated, her lip quivering. "Mr. Clark and his men, from the other farm. Mama worked for them. They said she stole food, but she didn't. They beat her and told her to leave town." John's jaw tightened. Clark was a powerful man, owned half the land on this side of the county. He'd always bullied the poor ranch hands, taking advantage of those who had nowhere else to go. John looked out the window at the dark fields, his mind already made up. "Don't you worry, Lily," he said, his voice low but steady, "I'll take care of this." That night, as the girl slept beside her mother, John sat alone on the porch, the moonlight glinting off his old revolver. The air was still, but inside him burned a storm. He had seen injustice before, but never this close, never this cruel. He knew confronting Clark wouldn't be easy. Clark had money, power, and friends in high places. But John had something stronger, the truth, and the determination to protect the innocent. The next morning, he saddled his horse and rode toward the Clark estate. The sun had barely risen, but his heart was already heavy with fire. When he reached the ranch gates, 2 guards stood there, smirking. "You lost, Marshall," one said. John dismounted slowly. "Tell your boss I'm here about Mary." The guards exchanged glances but didn't move. "He's busy." John's hand moved to his holster. "Then you'd better make him unbusy." Something in his eyes made them step aside. Inside, Clark sat on his porch, sipping whiskey, dressed in fine clothes that didn't fit the dirt of the land. "Well, if it isn't John Marshall," he sneered. "What brings you here?" John stared at him coldly. "You beat a woman and left her to die. You think you can walk away from that?" Clark chuckled. "That woman was a thief. I don't take kindly to thieves on my land." "And I don't take kindly to cowards," John said, stepping forward. "You're gonna fix what you broke. You're gonna pay her hospital bill, clear her name, and keep your men away, or I'll make sure everyone in this county knows what kind of man you really are." Clark stood, his smirk fading. "You don't scare me, rancher." I'm not here to scare you, John said, his voice like steel. I'm here to stop you. Could react, John swung, his fist connecting with the man's jaw. Clark stumbled back, cursing. The guards ran forward, but John drew his gun. Don't, he warned, and for a moment, the world went still. Then John holstered his gun, turned to Clark, and said, "You've been warned. Touch that woman again, and I'll finish this for good." With that, he left, riding back to his ranch, where the little girl ran to him and hugged his leg, whispering, "Thank you, mister." He smiled faintly. "No need to thank me, kiddo. Sometimes doing what's right is just what we're supposed to do." But deep down, John knew, this wasn't over. Clark was too proud, too cruel to let it end here. And he was right. That night, as thunder rolled across the horizon, shadows gathered near the ranch again.